Welcome to Crafty Hints. I'm Chantel. I have re-edited 15 of last year's fall DIYs. I thought this would be a good place for you to be able to watch them one right after the other. Let's get to DIY 1. I thought a buffalo check pumpkin would really be cute, and I started out trying the bigger pumpkin, but it just didn't quite look right. So I went with this smaller one that you can get from the Dollar Tree that has like flowers and things on top. And I tried both the wider ribbon and the thinner ribbon to see which would work better. And the wider ribbon that I just got at the Dollar Tree worked well. What you do is you just take a butter knife and, or a little tool, but I just went along the little ripples of the pumpkin. And when I took the ribbon, I just set it on top of each other. And the new piece of ribbon, I just laid on top, and then you just push it right into the pumpkin. I used a butter knife. I thought that worked really well. When I was a kid, we used to make quilted ornaments this way with all different types of Christmas fabric. So that's where this idea came from, bringing back a little nostalgia here. All right, and I just continued tucking that all the way around on each of the ridges or ribs of a pumpkin. Gosh, I am not sure what the term is. If you know, let me know down below. So I just continued around and they did match up well. And then I just continued to tuck the bottom of this pumpkin and kind of twist it around and clipped off, whatever won't fit. You just want to make it nice and tidy and so that it will sit flat on your surface. I left a little bit more ribbon towards the top than I did the bottom. So you could definitely take that all the way up and kind of twist it and make that your stem. I decided to go a different route, but it's just a lot of poking around until you like what you see, giving it a nice finished look. And I think we're just about done with the sides and the top here. So I kind of twisted that, but I didn't like it. So I ended up trimming that off. And then I was deciding between some nautical rope or a stick. And I literally went outside to find this longer stick. So I clipped that off a bit. And then I kind of poked around in there with my butter knife, just making sure it would go down in there far enough for me. And then I'm going to just go back around it with my butter knife, poking it in. This styrofoam's easy to poke this butter knife into. So I continue to just work it back around and make that little twig secure. Next, I undid my nautical rope there, and I just decided that it would be the tendrils of the pumpkins. So you're just going to make this your own and do whatever you want there. You could do some wire and twist that around like a paintbrush or something like that and go that route. But this just looked a little more natural to me. And I think it went well with, a farmhouse country theme. I placed this on my side table last year with some white pumpkins. If you like to make tier trays, this is a good one for you. I took a tumbling tower block and a craft stick, popsicle stick, and just trim that off, and I'm hot gluing it to it. And as you see behind there, this is a hula skirt. Grab these. They are a great craft item. I have used mine all summer long for summer crafts, boho crafts. I've used them now in fall DIYs. The sky's the limit. You could definitely use raffia, but this is softer. So I just took 4 different pieces and I'm just putting those together, doubling it over, making my cornstalk. Even if you don't make tiered trays, this is a cute little accessory to make a little vignette or something in your home for fall. So I took these flowers and I thought it kind of looked like the top of a cornstalk. So I cut down some of the bottom part of it and I just wanted the top to kind of stick out for me. So you just continue to trim out until it looks the way that you want. And I'm just a little bit of hot glue. And yes, that's a very hot glue gun. So I attach that. And now I just want to, and if you have raffia, you could definitely use that. But I'm just going to put this all the way around this popsicle stick. This will make it look like our little mini cornstalk. And then all that you need to do is continue to put pieces around until it's as full as you'd like it, and then trim it up. I took some jute twine to tie it around and hold it in place just like you would a normal cornstalk. And then you're just going to trim that around that tumbling tower block so it just kind of covers it, but isn't hanging everywhere there for you. And what I'm doing here is just adding a little bit extra to cover that block a little bit. Now, what I'm going to do is add a few pumpkins around there. Give it, a little bit of that fall feel. Along with the corn, we need some pumpkins. So I'll put that on top of that tumbling tower block. And now I wanted to take a little bit of this Spanish moss. What I would suggest is just even, you can clip this over the bag too, or this can get really messy. But I just took the finest little bit and went around this pumpkin just to give it a little bit of, it just kind of came out of the field and it isn't perfectly clean and pristine. We want to make this fresh off the farm feel. So I just put a little of bits around it. Then I decided this is perfect. This will cover up my block and really make it feel that it's right out of the pumpkin patch. So I just took more of that Spanish moss and glued it around the tumbling tower block. And here it is in my tiered tray. I saw this sign on Pottery Barn for $149. Holy cow, I knew we could do that a lot cheaper. So I took this sign from the Dollar Tree and I just went over it with a wet wipe with some antique wax, and I used putty on the holes to fill that up for the sign to, make it nice and smooth. Next, I made this stencil on my Cricut, and it is a big one, so you could definitely cut this in half if that would be easier for you to place it down. I'm marking the center of this. Since it is oddly shaped, I thought it would be better to find the middle of those bottom words. So I took it off and just placed it on the board and rubbed it on there. Now this is stencil vinyl, so it's easier to remove. You could use temporary vinyl. I have found the stencil vinyl works the best. I have heard others have used contact paper also. Next, I'm taking some Waverly Ivory chalk paint. I really love their paint, so I tend to go to that. I use a dauber just to go right over the stencil. Now I'm going to go over this. If you remember, their whole sign wasn't covered, so I'm using that as my inspiration. It won't be identical, but it's a pretty good inspiration or dupe, I would say. You'll have to let me know below if you think I nailed it. I mean, $149? Wow. Not for a seasonal piece. So I'm just going over that with my sponge paintbrush. And when that gets pretty close to dry, I'm going to come back and start removing those letters. I got this tool at the Dollar Tree. I like it because it has two different sizes for the tip. You could definitely use your weeding tool or a needle or whatever you would like to remove these for yourself, but it's kind of neat. I really like the way it creates this effect, and peeling this off. Often when I do this, it peels off all at once, but with the cursive letters, it does come apart at the finer pieces. But it's kind of satisfying as it all just peels off. When I first did this, I did this really fast, and someone said they kind of like watching it, so I didn't speed all of it up. This beginning part I did do in close to real time. But doesn't that look nice? You have that lighter with the wood tone coming through. I think it turns out really pretty. So if we look at this and think about it, it was $1 for the sign. And then, you've got the paint, which I already had on hand. But if you want to add the price for that, I would say that we probably did this for about $2, wouldn't you? I will speed this up here so that we can get to the reveal. I think that just turned out really nice. And here's a side-by-side. $149, $2. I think we did a pretty good job. Here's a DIY that would go well on a tier tray or a little fall vignette. I started out with a straw or hay bale from the Dollar Tree. It's one of the bigger ones. And then I took one of the black tags and used my Artisto paint pen. And I wrote, "You pick pumpkins." So I thought this would be kind of cute if you put it with some other pumpkins. It looks like it's a little sign from the pumpkin patch. I just went over that to make sure that it, stood out nicely. You could definitely use a chalk marker, but I do like these Artisto paint pens. I just got them off Amazon. And so then what I did was grabbed a bamboo skewer. So these are just like for shish kebabs, and that will work to make a sign. I pulled one out, but I guess I decided to wait to put it on the bale here. So here is one of the bigger pumpkins, and here's a couple small ones. I'm just kind of trying it out here, what will fit best. now I poked my skewer in there so I can figure out how will I place the pumpkins around the sign. So I added a little bit of hot glue on the bottom of the pumpkin. And the other has the wire on the bottom. I just poked that in. And I pulled the wire off of the other pumpkin and wound it around a skewer and then pulled it out to make the little tendrils of the pumpkin. Now I'll cut down that skewer and I'll just glue it to the back. So you don't need any particular talents here. You're just making it the way you want to. And I think this works out cute, a little, makeshift sign here. And after that had dried, so I gave it one more once over with the chalk pen. And here we are. And it turned out to be cute on top of my tiered tray, along with that cornstalk. This is a fun little accent. I took one of the little chalkboards from the Dollar Tree and took some antique wax on a baby wipe and just rubbed that around the edges to give it a good stain. And then I just made this for my Cricut, printed out, and I'm just adhering it to the front of the chalkboard. Of course, you could use stickers, you could hand paint it on there with a chalk marker. You could use paints. There's so many different ways this could be done to personalize it for your home. You could also use regular stain if that fits your home decor just a little bit better. But I like that quick stain and it doesn't have a smell to it. So there it is, just the Hello Pumpkin, and I rubbed it back over it because this chalkboard, is a little bit slick. Now I wanted to embellish it a bit with some pumpkins like I did on this little piece I had made for a tier tray. And so all you have to do is take the pumpkins. I got these from the Dollar Tree. They come from between 6 and 10 to a pack. Actually, some come 3 to a pack also, but this bigger one I'm showing you, you just take one of your craft knives and cut it in half. This one I'm taking it about a third of the pumpkin. I didn't want it to stick out too far, but I will have more of a pumpkin for another craft going later. And this one had a few spots that needed a little bit of paint touch-up, so I did that. You could give it a total once over. You could paint it a totally different color, but again, this is your canvas. So I just touched that up a bit, and then that wire there is just from some floral that I used before. So you could use, other wire that you have, but crafty hint, don't throw it away. We can reuse it. So I did that to make sure that all of them have a stem, especially these little pumpkins, because they come with that little bamboo skewer maybe. I don't know. So I took another piece and again, I'm just curling that over a little bit, and then I just snip off as much as I need. And that's just wire that I wouldn't be using anyways. And you can use as many pumpkins as you'd like. I kind of played around with this. I thought I was going to go all the way across it, but I decided that less was more. And all I have to do is put a little bit of hot glue and on with my pumpkin. think that looks adorable. And then I decided to go with 2 little white pumpkins on each side. I thought that was just enough. Too cute. Yep, full disclosure, did it upside down, but that was okay. I really actually liked it that way. That way I could put something behind it if I wanted to, a little bit closer. This DIY could be used for your home at any time in the fall, but I think it would be wonderful for Thanksgiving. So I used those little pumpkins that come on the skewers from the Dollar Tree. And then I took this leaf off of one of the ceramic pumpkins, I believe. It could have been from a sign. I really believe it was one of the ceramic pumpkins, though. I used a little bit of moss and a little bit of celery, Waverly chalk paint. Love the chalk paint. It does the job normally in 1 coat. So I did 4 of those for my kitchen table. You'll see we're going to make some cute napkin rings. So I just used a shower ring that I got in a big pack from the Dollar Tree. I grabbed some of this burlap ribbon, and all you need to do is a dab of glue and just keep wrapping that until you're happy with how it looks. You'll want to add just a dab of glue here or there just to make sure it stays adhered. And that burlap ribbon is also just from the Dollar Tree. So these are inexpensive items, but they have a high-end impact. Now I just took a wet wipe and put the end of one of the skewers from the pumpkin on there so that I could take it and run it right in the little veins of this leaf, and it just took off some of it and gave that metal there and made it cute. I went in with a little bit of mineral. You could use a gray, that would probably work, or a tannish gray. Maybe mix those if you have acrylic paints. I also took a wet wipe with a little bit here of the Waverly Ivory chalk paint and just rubbed it on the edges. As you can see, I'm sorry, that was a little bit out of frame there. As you can see, just going, here or there on the leaf to just make it a little bit aged. And I just took it on a brush to go across the veins just a little bit as well. So really simple, just as much or as little as you like. I painted the end of those skewers in hazelnut. Now I'm just pushing the leaves right through the pumpkins. So this will kind of just look like that pumpkin leaf or a fall leaf. And then very easily I'm wrapping that wire just right around that napkin ring. That's all there is to it. See how cute that looks? You could definitely use, any colored napkin you want that would fit your decor. But this is a very neutral napkin ring. You could keep those pumpkins orange. So many different ways to go. I saw this at the Dollar Tree and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it. I wanted this for the very top of my tear tray so I could keep just changing the date. So I didn't really want all of the windows there or anything, and I wanted it to not look so cartoony. So I taped off the little box that the dates are in. And I just used some masking tape. You could use painter's tape, but masking tape was the old painter's tape. So I still use that here and there as well as painter's tape. It's just a much cheaper way to go. And I try to be as cost efficient as we can. Crafty hint there, this is cheap. All right, so I took some Waverly Ivory chalk paint, and I did end up giving this 2 coats. I realized I might want to just tape off where the roof lines are. So I taped that off and then just continued with 2 coats. It doesn't have to be perfect though. So pretty simple. I think you all know how to paint. I don't need to be too specific there. Just making sure it's all covered. It looks pretty good after 2 coats. And so I'm just going to take off that masking tape. And then we'll just go back with some Waverly ink chalk paint, or you could use some black acrylic paint. It would just take a couple of coats. I do like the apple barrel acrylic paints or the folk art. Folk art, goes on a little bit thicker. All of these are plaid paints, and I love them. I am a plaid ambassador, and I'm very thankful for that. So I'm just going and repainting the roof line there. I just gave it a once over with the sanding block, and away we go. It'll take 1 coat to put this on, and it's pretty simple. And you just want to go back over the edges as well so that nothing looks funny or different than the rest. But it's wonderful what you can do with just a little bit of paint. So now I took this little chalkboard that's on a stake, and I decided to get rid of the stake there. I first started out trying to just remove the glue a little bit. I'm just showing you it doesn't really work, so I just kind of snapped it. And then I took my little craft knife and took off the extra little piece and glue there. And now I did This Is Us on my Cricut. Again, you could use a chalk marker and write whatever you would like that fits your family. This is one that I thought could go for a couple of seasons. It's just black and white, and you could move this from your tiered tray to another area of your home. But I really like it on the tiered tray as it can be versatile and keep going season to season. So just a little bit of hot glue there. If you wanted, you could add a couple of fall embellishments, maybe a couple little leaves, something like that. But I just added a bow, and here we are. I grabbed this sign from the Dollar Tree along with this 100% acetone polish remover. That will help to take off this paint on here. Now, I love teachers. My sister's a teacher, and I, love them to death and cherish them. But I thought this really deserved a little bit of a fall makeover. So I used some of that folk art home decor antique wax, and I just went around and gave this once or twice over. I thought this really seems fall-like as it has a bit of that burlap and the metal. So I made this on my Cricut. You could definitely use some of the rub-ons from the Dollar Tree or some stickers, or, you could freehand with a marker or paint pen. Next, I just took a little bit of paint and went over the little nail heads there. And here you could use a little bit of greenery of your choice. I really like this. It just pops right off. And so I want to take some of the smaller leaves and I'm just going to put those on top and then glue them in place. You could definitely add any accent that you felt, would fit for you. Could be some fall leaves, but I thought this would be one that you could use outside of fall as well. Grateful and blessed can go a long way. I think a lot of us are feeling awful blessed right now and grateful for what we do have. I got a huge bag of beads off of Amazon. I'll link those below. I love that it has so many different sizes, and I have used this for so many different projects. It was the best buy I could find also. I want to say that was around $13. I will link that below and let you know. Now, I just gave it a little bit of that antique. I'm taking some jute twine. I'll just put this right through the bead and tie that on there. This will replace a bow. It'll just have the little ends hanging off, and I just thought it was a neat and different accent. So you just position that and get that twine in between the leaves. And a dab of hot glue will do. Okay, another dab of glue here, just to have the leaves or the string stay in place where you want them. And it's just the tiniest dot. Doesn't take a lot to hold that in place. Kind of hide that right underneath the leaves. I think it gives a little bit of the effect of a bow. And there we are. Sticking with that tiered tray idea, this is a quick sign. Now, I just took this coaster from the Dollar Tree and some scrapbook paper from Hobby Lobby that looks like old weathered barn board, and I just traced around it. As you can see off to the right, I also cut out Hello Pumpkin with my Cricut. If you don't have a Cricut, all of the craft stores have the neatest fonts out there. You could choose some other stickers that would work just as well. I prefer to use this Elmer's extra strength glue. It holds this so nicely. And so that's what I use to adhere a lot of things. I will use Mod Podge also when I like to put it over the top and make sure it's sealed. This didn't need that. So I'm going to just use 2 pieces of the jute twine and make a bow. If you are concerned though about this paper getting wet, you could definitely use Mod Podge over the top. I love Mod Podge. I just decided to go this route. So now I'm thinking I might put some embellishments on there along with the string. Now, to get this just right on your edge, if you use either a nail file, like an acrylic nail file, or sandpaper. That will get you right to the edge and nice and smooth instead of trying to trim around it. Now I put my adhesive vinyl here right on top. Again, you can use stickers, or you could use a paint pen or marker on this to personalize it to say whatever you'd like it to say. And hello, pumpkin. Too cute. So now we just need a dab of hot glue. When I'm using smaller items like this, I do use a low temp glue gun. As you know, you're touching it just a little bit more and you only need a little bit. So that is handy. I do decide against putting any extra embellishments. It just seemed like too much. This seemed like a nice, simple DIY. What would you do? Would you leave this just the way it is? Let me know. And here it is with just some pumpkins. It's a cute accent to any little vignette. To start this project, I started by mixing some paint. So I took some white acrylic paint and some orange acrylic paint, and I just mixed those together. I was going for a more neutral theme, and I wanted it to be a light orange, but I just continued to mix until I got the color that I wanted. It's great to use old vegetable trays for this way. We can reuse it. So that's what I've done here with a craft stick. I just mixed it up. And as you can see, I have a touch light there, and I also have one of the votives kind of off to the corner there. This is going to light up our little mini lantern. So I laid down some wax paper. It's a great way to protect your surface. So I have this jar from the Dollar Tree. I took a sponge brush, and I'm just going to give it a good once over. Now, my first coat, I wanted it to be a bit lighter than my second coat. And I think you'll see there, that way it will give the ribs just a little bit of a different color. This just reminded me of a pumpkin, so I went with this. So quick once over. Pretty simple there. And I did 2 of these. So then I mixed, I used one of my pumpkin leaves like I did on the napkin rings. And I'm just going to put those on top of the lanterns. So this time I went around that wire, around a pen, and pull that straight so it just looks like a couple of those tendrils. You can bend those other leaves just a little bit too. That coil up there was a little bit big, so I just went around a pencil to make it a little bit smaller. Kind of play with it until you get it the way you want. Perfect. This should be cute on top of the lid. And I'll just be using a stick on top of that. If you were lucky enough to get some of those little bits of sticks or twigs or whatever you want to call them to glue on top, you can definitely use those. Now I just mixed up a little bit darker paint and kind of just put it here and there, leaving in between some of those ribs lighter. I let that dry. And here we are. This is what it looks like dry. You can see a little bit of lighter area on some of the ribs. I glued the stick and the leaf on, pretty simple. And here it is all lit up. I used one of those touch lights. Here is another wonderful tiered tray, or I actually ended up putting this one, I think, on my side table. I took one of these little party favor buckets. You can get those at the Dollar Tree in a 3-pack. I'm using my Posca paint pens. It's just an acrylic paint. You could use a paintbrush. You could use a Sharpie. Again, your creativity is the limit. This is what I used. I really like my acrylic paint pens. So I put a little bit of foam in the buckets, and here's some Spanish moss. Now, since I filmed this, I have found that clipping that Spanish moss right inside the bag to about how much you need makes it so much easier to work with. Otherwise, it can be quite a bit messy. So I would clip about what you need right in the bag so that the rest is right there. I knew that I was going to do a second bucket and do sunflowers. So the Dollar Tree also has sunflowers. This one will be pumpkins. So I'm also taking some of those fall leaves from the Dollar Tree and just cutting them up a bit so that they'll just kind of stick out from underneath the pumpkins. Whoop, that one had a mind of its own. And I'll just push that right back on there. You could also go with the smaller pumpkins that come in like a 10-pack. That would be really cute. You could probably get more. Those are also more styrofoam, so if you wanted to stack them on top of each other. I kind of just wanted these. They have a more finished look to them. So this is what I thought would be cute to go along with some other fall and Halloween decor that I had. So it would be pretty versatile there. So remember, you've got the sunflowers you can also grab from the Dollar Tree as another item. I got this picture at the Dollar Tree, and the frames just pop right off, and you can use those for another project in the future. I did like the check theme to this, and I do know that they have some more of those this year, so you can definitely do that. I'm going to go in and just paint the whole inside in plaster. I just dump a bit in and then take my foam brush and get that all painted out. That will help match the sides of this. I'm not going to paint those out. I do like that black and white theme that it'll give it. You can get the package of the metal words from the Dollar Tree. There's thankful, welcome. Oh goodness, I can't think of the third one. I think it's harvest. Yes, that is it. And harvest. And those are in the Dollar Tree usually with their fall items. I went back over this with some Waverly ink chalk paint, and I did give that 2 coats. Now I'm just going to make a simple normal bow. I fold this over just a little bit because it is just a little bit thick for this project. Next, I use some E6000 to attach the ThankFul because with the hot glue, it instantly sets with the hot glue. The metal and hot glue doesn't mix well. And then just choose your favorite greenery to go on the bottom in the front. This is going to be a cute little sign. And I'm sorry, I wish I were a little bit closer to the camera here, but I will adjust in just a moment. So just grabbing a little bit more greenery and just keep adding until you can make your little swag the way that you want it. This little sign would work on the wall, or it would work nicely on a shelf. I put it on a shelf with some pictures, and that worked well for my decor. Next, I thought I would use that bow that we created and just put it in the middle. Again, using a paint stick here because it does have a ruler on one side. That'll help me find the center easily. And just hold that in place there. And that'll finish this one up. One is inspired by a Birch Lane print, and theirs didn't have leaves under the pumpkins. That was what I was showing you there. I have one with leaves and one without. I'm trying to make it a close dupe. So I took these jumbo size popsicle sticks that I got from Walmart, and I'm just marking where the paper is. You can cut these simply by using scissors or an X-Acto knife. As you can see, boom, the scissors just take care of them. So I did end up cutting out 4, and then you just want to give them a quick sand. And it does work for the most part to give them a quick sand across their first swipes, you know, on their, as all 4 of them. But it's kind of easy to do that. So again, it's just a matter of putting your text there and printing it out. You could do this in Canva. You could do this on PicMonkey. So many ways to do this. I just took some hot glue around the bottom and then on the sides. And I want it to just go around just on the edge so it hangs off just a little bit so it doesn't take away too much from the paper. And I did print that on cardstock, by the way. You wouldn't want just paper. And I did this on both ends. And it wasn't quite attached there, so gave it a little bit more glue. And then I just took some nautical rope and you'll just attach that on the back so that you can hang it up. What an inexpensive way to make some home decor. And I just put a little bit of glue at the end of the nautical rope so it didn't start to unravel. If you're enjoying this video, I do hope that you'll subscribe and give me a like and go ahead to hit that bell. That way you'll be notified when I do come out with some new DIYs. And it's as simple as that. Isn't that pretty? Now, I'm going to show you here. Theirs was on sale from $25 down to $23. And mine was about, you know, a quarter. Not a bad dupe, right? I started out with a Dollar Tree tray. It was a gold tray, and I just gave it a quick spray paint in black, which I didn't end up needing to do because I decided to go over and cover it with hazelnut. Next, I'm taking a fan brush and just going in with some truffle and just giving this a bit of a fall feel, you know, some of those darker fall colors. And this is a little bit more of that hazelnut, just wisping back over the top of it. This is a great accent to put some of your pumpkins on, you know, some fall leaves. So I went back in with now some antique wax. I'm just keep layering those colors on. I added mineral and I'm dry brushing. But it's basically just layering the colors on until you like what it looks like. I wasn't going for a faux wood look here. It was just kind of an old age tray, like kind of an old wooden tray, but it's all painted up. So now I wanted to cover the bottom of it with some wood. So I decided on the medium size craft sticks. Actually, that's the jumbo. So I picked those up at Walmart. I laid out all the different ones you could use though, depending on how big you wanted your planks. And just continue to cut those to size. I wasn't positive that the whole tray would be exact, so I didn't line them all up and cut them that way. I cut them individually. Now I'm going back with that folk art home decor antique wax. And I also go over the tray in this. Just put some in the bottom of the tray and just using that to go around it. And I add that with a wet wipe. Now I'm just hot gluing these little planks in. So it does give it a look of just an old wood tray, but I didn't go for trying to create the full faux wood. And you could, after you glued all these in, if you wanted to go back over them with a dry brush, you could do that as well. I liked how they looked just as they were. It kind of looked like an old restored wooden tray to me. And that's what I went with. Just continue to glue all those in. I think this would work also in transition over to Christmas if you wanted to. Put some evergreen in there. Just to finish off the sides, I'm going in with some nautical rope and hot gluing that in. These trays are pretty versatile and you can use them in so many different ways. Just making sure to get those tight in the corners so you don't get any bunching. And we'll just run that right down the line there. And I just went back with a little bit more truffle just around like those little nail heads there and also in the corners where you might need it or you might have brushed something off. This is a big bag of the pumpkins that I got at Hobby Lobby. It was $9.99 and it was 40% off. And here's how I decorated it. I think it worked wonderfully for what I needed. This DIY, I use a long beach sign from the Dollar Tree. I also cut out this on my Cricut. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is to really do this, especially with Cricut switching to their latest model. You can find some good deals out there right now. Maybe put it on your Christmas list. But it's pretty easy to just weed those out. The best memories are made gathered around the table. I think that's such a true sentiment, especially after some of the time we've had to spend apart. Now this label was stuck. Whew, was it stuck? I've tried and tried. So just pull out the hairdryer and off it comes. And then just give it a quick sand to get the rest of the adhesive off. Then just a little bit of spackling that I got from the Dollar Tree will go in those holes. I decided that actually I won't need the spackling. I started to put that on there, but what we're going to do is frame this out instead. I took some Waverly Ivory chalk paint and just gave this a good 2 coats. Now, if you grab the 5-gallon paint sticks, this will be perfect. You do need 2 packs, and what I'm showing you here is, here's Walmart's, and they don't have the ruler on them, and the wood has a little bit of a different finish. And then there is the ones from Home Depot or Lowe's that do. It does help, you know, when you're trying to measure out to have that little bit of a ruler on there if you want to use it. I used my hand miter box to just cut these down to size. It's pretty simple. You'll just want to measure the size and decide, you know, which part will be on top of the other sides. You could use whatever stain you would like to fit your decor. I chose the Folk Art Antique Wax. You could also use Waverly's Antique Wax. They're very similar. They're both run by Plaid or owned by Plaid, made by Plaid. So I'm sure they're very similar. Next here, I gave it some wood glue, and then you could give it just a little bit of hot glue for that instant hold, and then that wood glue works better than nails most times. So I'm just going to put this down. Oh, I realized I probably should have done the other piece first. So I will just use that for measurement because this is a smaller piece, which is on the sides. And I decided the other one would go across. So I just put that down quick for measurement and make sure it's all the way to the edge. So it's best to put the top, each side on so that the other sides can then, you know, wiggle around a little bit. I used wood clamps just to make sure that nothing was out of place. And it's as simple as that. In hindsight, I would probably have put my decal on first, but I thought it might be best just to put this on, let it sit overnight, make sure everything's adhered properly before I applied my decal. Those clamps were just from a bag of them at Walmart. All right, I gave that a good sanding and centered it in there. And I could not find my scraper, so I just used my back of that weeding tool. And look at that. Does that not look like it came right out of Kirkland's? And we did this for just a couple of bucks. That would be so pretty in your dining room or set out for Thanksgiving with your family. Thank you so much for watching this bulk video here, mega video. I hope you got a few inspirations for your fall decor. Please hit like and subscribe. I'd love to have you as part of my friends and family.